I get to interview all sorts of amazing creators, activists, entrepreneurs, while we're doing things in the wellness world, while we're having real conversations around how these people decided to break out of their lane and create a 360 diversified background for themselves. Today we have Nakeo, who is the founder of 13 Lune and Relevant Your Skin Scene. We are so excited to have her here today because you have been in the beauty industry for over 20 years. And we're super excited about the skincare line and everything you're doing with 13 Lune. And I just really wanted to kind of dive into some of your learnings, etc. And before I go into like your background, I also want to get this on my face. So this is your resting mask.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about it.
Yes. Well, first of all, I called it a resting mask because I think it's so important, and it's one of the most kind of underrated moments of our skincare routine is the repair mode. And repair mode can be when you actually go to bed at night, but it can also be when you're getting on a plane. Anything, you know, this whole brand is about really addressing the number one skincare concern still standing, which is not enough hydration in our skin.
Right. And I feel like also people are really obsessed with AHAs and brightening and all the things, but if you do not have hydrated skin, the more you use actives, the more your skin is going to
react.
Exactly.
No, it's so true. And what I love about this resting mask specifically is that it's got azelaic acid in it. And so azelaic is so great, you know, especially when you're in that restorative mode. It sort of helps your skin when you wake up or when you get off a plane to still have that dewy look. Most of these products have hyaluronic, niacinamide, all of the ingredients that everybody's been, you know, super educated on the last couple of years.
Ceramicides.
But, you know, what I love the most about azelaic acid, it's like, you know, a lot of people are kind of left out of the acid world because if you have more melanin in your skin, you're more likely to react from certain acids because it can cause hyperpigmentation or hypopigmentation. And azelaic is a very powerful acid, but it's a gentle enough acid done at a level that's safe for all skin tones because we just want to be melanin safe for all.
You have this crazy knowledge of the industry. You've been in it for over 20 years. Your first ever venture was Nakeo, namesake.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the inspiration was around Nakeo?
Yes. So Nakeo is actually named after my grandmother, Nakeo, who taught me my first beauty secret. I'm a first generation American of Kenyan descent. And I got to go to Kenya for the first time when I was 8 years old, and that's when I met my grandmother, Nakeo, and she was a coffee farmer, and she didn't speak a lot of English, and I sadly didn't speak a lot of Kikuyu, and so we would sort of just bond hanging out on her farm. And at the end of every day, the biggest treat for me is we would take sort of all the leftover coffee beans and we would grind them, and then we would add oils from her kitchen. And then we would take rods of sugarcane because she grew fresh sugarcane as well. And then we would put the solution all over our bodies and we would use that sugarcane to exfoliate our skin. And I would always just say, look how glowy I am. And so that stuck with me. That's where the beauty journey began. And my grandfather, who passed away before I got the chance to know him, was a medicine man. So he went out in nature and extracted oils to treat the skin and ailments. And so even growing up in the States, you know, my mom said, you know, even kids in the village used to get pimples and your grandfather knew exactly what to go extract. And he would add some oil or honey to a leaf and he would attach it to my skin and I'd wake up in the morning and my pimple was gone. So all of these sort of practices were, you know, things that my mom sort of carried through my regimen. You know, I wanted to be that kid that could pick up anything at the pharmacy or the drugstore, and my mom would turn that box over and look at the ingredients and she'd say, no, we can do this ourselves. So, you know, that sort of natural, it was way before clean was called clean, but that natural journey to treating my skin really started for me as a little girl. And then when I got older and moved out to LA and worked in Hollywood and had all of these beautiful products coming across my desk for the actresses that I got to work with, I never found that the continent of Africa was truly represented in the way that it was sophisticated to me and, you know, full of like bright beauty and goodness and celebrating the culture. And so I left my job at 27 and I started making my grandmother's coffee scrub.
Wow.
That's how it started.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What was fundraising like for Nakeo?
Oh my gosh.
Because that was obviously a while ago.
Yes.
And we know how hard it is currently in our current landscape for Black women entrepreneurs. So what was that like back then?
Oh my gosh, you know, it's so interesting. And I say this to people, especially young entrepreneurs that I mentor through 13 Lune, et cetera, that I actually consider myself, while education is power, lucky to have been so naive when I was 27 years old and decided to start a beauty brand, because I had no idea what the stats were. All I knew is that I wanted this to exist in the world. I needed a little bit of capital to get it to shelf, and then I would figure it out along the way. And so I learned very quickly, after writing a 32-page business plan, which is not acceptable these days, lucky you, that, as I went out and started to make, get intros to people who invested in young entrepreneurs, I wasn't getting a lot of return emails or phone calls back, and I didn't have the time to wait it out. I needed to make money to survive. And so I went the angel route, the friends and family route. That was the way that I knew that I could get to market and help to scale the business. And then, sort of as the business grew, often bigger than I could afford, I would, pound a lot of pavement, knock on a lot of doors. But, as I started to sort of prove that the concept was working, then the world started to open up a little bit more to me. But, I didn't raise venture funding until my second time entrepreneurial journey.
You raised in this last round of financing for 13 Loon and Relevant, Your Skin Scene, $8 million in this last round, bringing the total raise to over 12 million?
Yeah, just over 12 million.
So tell me a little bit about what that was like now, because obviously very different experience from raising, angel money and friends and family checks to full-on VC institutional cash.
Yes, it's been amazing. It's really, it's been 21 years. It's validating, that this can happen. And what I love the most about it is that by being a Black woman who has raised over 12.5 million in a business that's only 24 months old, I'm showing the next generation of founders, the founders whose brands we carry at 13 Lune, that this can happen. I think the biggest difference for me, even in our last round, Fearless Fund, a fund that was started by Black women supporting people of color as a VC. It was the first time I'd ever sat, it was on Zoom, but sat in front of VCs who looked like me. Yeah. And more, that's starting to happen. Our cap table is very diverse of, angels and VCs and family offices, and really reflects what we're building at 13 Lune. And I think that is the secret sauce. That's the magic. It can't be, let's just bring a bunch of people of color brands to shelf and take up more space. It has to start with the purse strings.
As you start to mentor some younger entrepreneurs, you did say how when you were building Nakeo, it often grew bigger than you can afford.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that is a very, very poignant, relevant thing for a lot of entrepreneurs. Often their business is growing, their upfront costs are too much for them to afford, but then it's like, how do you keep the growth going?
Right.
So what are some things that you can say to some entrepreneurs that we have watching that are just a few tips in terms of whether it's the fundraising or to get past that, what seems like these big moments that are, it needs some out of the box thinking around how to move forward.
Right. That's such a great question. And I sure wish I asked it when I was young. It is discipline, right? I think that especially at a time right now where there's, more and more attention given to, brands, founded by people of color, there's a lot of opportunity that comes your way, but the discipline really comes within, it's cliche, but slow and steady wins the race. Yeah. It was so hard for me when I was, in those phases with Nakeo. I mean, I think at one point my brand had been on the Oprah show, this will age me, and the Ellen show in the same week.
Wow.
And it crashed my website, and I didn't have the inventory to ship people their holiday orders. And the damage that can do to your brand, to your soul, is hard. So you have this high, like, oh my gosh, I've made it. I'm on Oprah and Ellen. Oh no, I can't ship people their holiday gifts. Right. It's really conflicting. And then who's going to give me the money to fill these orders? And so I think first and foremost, it's discipline. You form those relationships, go meet those retailers, but absolutely do not say yes unless you are not going to, unless you're planning to go to shelf to die. Right. Make sure that you've got your ducks in a row. Align yourself with retailers who will be there to help you grow.
Before we go on, I just have to say my skin feels incredible.
Right? What, like when you go to sleep with this mask on, this little resting mask, and I think sometimes the word mask throws people off because you think, oh, I have to wash it off. But this is really just a deep, deep, deep hydrator. And that is salicylic acid. Your hands.
My cuticles.
Yeah, it's so good.
13 Lune, incredible retailer, but you created a retail business during a time when retail was considered dead.
Yeah.
But at the same time, all eyes were on Black-owned businesses, and retail for Black-owned businesses was a very big conversation within the retail space that a lot of people also thought was kind of dead.
Right.
So tell me how you decided, okay, this is going to be retail first.
Right. So, you know, in the midst of the global pandemic and the world being shut down, we were also in the midst of the greatest heightened moment of a racial reckoning of our lifetime.
Correct.
And as a result of that happening, there were all of these lists going around. And I'd been an entrepreneur at that point for 18 years, founder for 18 years. And that was the most attention I had ever gotten in my entire career, was showing up on all of these lists. And while it was nice to have the attention, we were also in the midst of a global pandemic and wondering how we were going to keep our families alive. And so, you know, that was sort of my first aha moment of like, wow. And then also, as I would look at these lists, I couldn't believe, you know, because I was in premium skincare with Nakeo, I was quite often the only person of color in a set at a national retailer, et cetera. And all of a sudden there was all these lists, 100, 1,000, 500 beauty brands made by people of color that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And when I would go down the rabbit hole and look at their Instagrams and their websites, they had very few followers. A lot of them were just D2C. And I thought, well, this is so crazy, because I was watching beautiful initiatives like Aurora's 15% pledge and Sharon doing the work for Pull Up for Change. And there was all these great initiatives happening. But in my mind, I thought, well, gosh, here's 500 brands. Like, why is it so hard to get to 15?
Right.
And, you know, my co-founder Patrick and I had long talked about starting a business together. We were ready for business number 2 for both of us in our lives separately. And at that moment, I thought, well, gosh, if I opened a store or a retailer, I would actually have 90% of the brands be people of color from around the globe and help debunk the myth that Black and brown people only make products for ourselves, which is so silly.
Yes.
Because most ingredients and beauty rituals and everything we know comes from places like Africa, Southeast Asia. You know,
yes,
this obviously it works on your skin because you use it in all your products.
Right.
And so that was really the goal. Was helping to build generational wealth, take up more space, and sort of flip retail on its head. And it was a goal that we knew we always wanted to be omni-channel and have a physical presence, because I didn't believe retail was dead. I was missing going to stores other than the pharmacy and the grocery store. And so we knew it was going to start as an omni-channel business, but we were going to start with a platform because we wanted to storytell. I love sites like Violet Grey and Goop, and had always looked up to, you know, these sort of your site, you know, editorial spaces to educate yourself and have the ability to purchase product. And so we started as a platform with 13 Black-owned brands. We knew that we wanted 90% to be Black or brown owned, but we wanted 10% to be dedicated to fostering allyship, which we defined as not a Black or brown owned brand, but a brand that has long been thinking about us in their shades, in front of the camera, behind the camera. We saw a lot of performative behavior happening at this time, where all of a sudden every model is Black or brown in an ad, but you look at the rest of their page and there's not one. And so we went to our allies, and they were allies that were brands I loved, allies who had been true allies, like Gwyneth at Goop for me as I was coming up with Nakeo, and asked them to join the site as well. And so we started with 13 Black-owned brands, one ally, Goop. And then now we have over 165 brands. 60 days after we launched, we got a call from JCPenney saying, we want you to be our new in-store beauty partner.
Which was an amazing timing for you guys as well as JCPenney.
Yes.
Because obviously JCPenney had the Sephora departure.
Yes.
And was really an optimal time to bring in a new kind of fresh retail beauty concept.
Yeah, and it's America's oldest retailer. They've always been serving America. And Black and brown and people in rural communities are America, and they loved having Sephora within JCPenney. And so it's been exciting. We are almost done opening all 613 Lune stores at JCPenney, opening a flagship here in LA. But most importantly, we're changing lives. I mean, when we look at, there was just an article in Beauty Independent on one of our founders who was the first Native American woman to ever launch a makeup brand in a national retailer when she launched with us at 13 Lune at
Oh my God,
JCPenney.
does that just like give
which
you
is also
chills?
wild. We're
I
like, we're in the
know.
United States of America. Like, how's that even possible? But, you know.
Well, you're also, I mean, your own stat of you raising over $12 million for your company, you are your own statistic. Like,
I think
goal.
the 94th Black woman ever to raise more than $1 million.
There you go.
And it's 2023. It's crazy.
It's insane. You obviously have this beautiful platform that's now inside, you know, the shop in JCPenney. You're doing your own standalone retail shop for 13 Lune that will launch later this year. And then your new baby.
Yes.
Relevant, your skin scene.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about this, because it's kind of like round 2 skincare for you. And now it's kind of born out of the 13 Lune family. You started with one product.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about first the inspiration for Relevant Your Skin Scene, and then why you decided that you wanted to launch specifically with one product. Because, and by the way, you talked about omni-channel before, and I've really been noticing a huge trend within most consumer brands now. They're moving really away from direct to consumer and really focusing on an omni-channel approach,
right?
Which I think is very smart, because they're trying to meet their customer everywhere their customer is. And there are some of these kind of cult beauty brands that really have started with just one specific SKU. So tell us a little bit around your thinking for launching with just one product at first.
I mean, a lot of that was just education,
Right.
you know, watching what was happening in the industry. But a big part of it was because, and I launched with our one and done everyday cream with SPF 40. And I launched with this product specifically because even in, you know, I started developing this brand in 2020 at the same time that I was developing the concept for 13 Lune with Patrick. And that's why it's so colorful, because I was trying to evoke joy at a time that was not quite so joyful for many of us. But I was still seeing that so many people, especially people in Black and brown communities, were skipping the step of sun care. And seeing the melanoma numbers go up, and really having a bird's eye view into the inequity when it comes to medical opportunity in a lot of underserved communities, period. And so that's when I decided I wanted to have a product that was going to keep it simple. It's a daily moisturizer that has 4 steps, 4 like multitasking steps in one, which is it's a primer, it's a serum, it's your moisturizer, and it has SPF 40. I personally love mineral sunscreens. I obviously am very committed to trying to do as well as I can when it comes to clean and in my own life. And, you know, while I love mineral sunscreens, I did not like the fact that mineral sunscreens would leave a white cast on my skin, or if I was really dark in the summer months, like a purple cast on my skin. And so worked with our formulators for 2 years to, you know, deliver on something that's clean, that has the skincare benefits like 2 hyaluronic acids and niacinamide, all the African oils, and homage to my grandfather, but also gives you that protection from UV rays.
And I want to ask about your formulation, because you have here a very low titanium dioxide and zinc oxide number, yet you have such a high SPF.
Yes.
And that, tell me if I'm wrong, I believe that is due to the technology that you used.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Yes, definitely.
Because this is hard to achieve.
Oh my gosh, you should see how many versions
and
we
most
went through. Yes.
Most mineral sunscreens are usually up at around like a 17.5% zinc. You're at a 1% zinc.
Yes.
Can you just explain a little bit about why that number, this number is low, yet you're able to receive such a high SPF?
Yeah, it is. It's the technology. You know, there are advances in sunscreen all the time. And I think that that's great, because it gets more people to wear it and not suffer from the things that they don't love.
Right.
I think also, you know, we are able, you know, to achieve, you know, that protection while also delivering on the skincare benefits. So we didn't need as much zinc. That's not what's protecting you from the skin. It's a combination of all of or from the sun. This is a combination of all of these ingredients. And, you know, this gives up to 97% protection from UV rays.
Oh, wow.
I can reapply this every 2 hours, especially if I'm like outside all day. I apply it every 2 hours. But even when I have makeup on, I can put it over my makeup and it doesn't distract. It doesn't cause my makeup to slip. And I use it as a primer. If I'm not using the Relevant Lights Out mask, I use this as my primer. But even like with dark skin, and I have a little bit of concealer on right now, not other makeup, but you can see that it doesn't cause my skin to fade.
Yeah.
If I'm using, I've already applied it today. Normally I try to fill these 2 fingers up.
Yeah.
And make sure that I'm getting enough.
Yeah,
but
the 2-finger rule is a big situation.
So this is like, you know, giving credit where credit's due. Amazing formulators who worked and worked and worked to find the perfect balance of the skincare ingredients, the protection that you need, first and foremost, as well as deliver on the promise that you're going to look like yourself after you wear it.
As we finish up, I just want to quickly talk about where is 13 Lune and Relevant Your Skin Scene going in 2023.
My gosh,
we touched a little. I know we touched a little bit on it.
So many places. So first quarter, we'll be opening our flagship store here in Los Angeles, which I'm so excited about. It's going to be really a space of community and events, not your typical beauty store.
Okay.
By May, we will roll out all 600 of our 13 Lune at JCPenney stores nationwide, so you can find us there.
Incredible.
We will continue to onboard incredible brands. You know, when we first started out, and you would reach out to some of these bigger brands, especially before we launched. Hey, I'm starting a platform. You know, now we're getting so much inbound, so that feels really good. We have the most amazing VP of merchandising, Janelle Freeman, who built Beauty at Net-a-Porter, and she's doing such an incredible job curating.
She is a beauty insider icon. I remember I got to meet Janelle for the first time in like 2015.
She's the best.
When she was at Net-a-Porter, and I'll never forget when she walked in the room. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe there is a Black woman who is running the beauty.
Running this hizzle.
Like,
no, it's
wow,
the best.
She's so iconic.
So good. She's so good. She's doing such an incredible job, her and her team, curating amazing brands. Really looking forward to taking Relevant global and starting those conversations now. So, you know, I'm just excited. We kicked off a great 2023 with closing this last raise, and now we're just ready to operate and grow.
Amazing. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud to be an investor.
I know. I was going to say thank you so much. You've been championing us since day one, and we're just so grateful to be in partnership with you.
We're just so grateful that a brand like you exists.
Ooh, naps.
That's
Hydrofacial.
Acupuncture.
Oh, that's a good one. That too. Skincare. Face oil.
I feel like it's gotta be like a tool or something, like my like LED night mask.
Yeah.
Nakeo, thank you so much for doing this with me today. This has been such an informative conversation, and like I feel like there's so many great learnings to take away. People can find you on social.
Yes, at 13 Lune and at relevant.skin.
Okay,
and
amazing.
Nakeo at Nyakio.
And at JCPenney.
And at 13 Lune at JCPenney.
And soon in LA, your flagship
at our
store.
flagship store on Larchmont Boulevard.